A what? Oh, a Paris rundown? Yeah. Paris was very good.
It was.
Yes, it was very cold though.
Did you see the Eiffel Tower?
Yes, I
Take a
did.
picture of it at night.
I did. I can show you pictures sometime.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, how are we doing it?
I don't know, but a guy in my books class said something that made me really mad. So now I'm like,
Yeah, I'm
are we going
always,
to build
I'm
like a
always for
giant
that.
base and then like have guns and then sing about it and then get through with water?
Okay, there's the word of the day. It's apophasis. Yeah. You're gonna what? Oh, great, thank you. Okay. Okay, so let's like review sort of last time. So Zootopia, that's great. You'll get some points for just doing that worksheet. I'm sure you did fine. The modest proposal, I got like a note from the sub that said people were confused. Then I talked to her, it seemed just like people were like tired and just didn't do it. But now you've done it and it's ready to go. Okay. Yes.
We're doing it in class today.
All right. So today we're going to talk about what that was. Hopefully you're like, oh, we're studying satire. I'm not supposed to take this very seriously. But if you went into it thinking this is going to be real, this is his real proposal, it's a pretty dark, scary essay. All right. So apophasis is something that he does close to the end of the essay. So everyone pull out modest proposal. It's white. We're going to, yeah. Yes? Yes. Okay, let me take that out of your hat. If you got that brown worksheet, everyone has a brown worksheet. I think I should get an award.
oh yeah, that's like, well, I had like training yesterday. It was good. Oh, I thought this was.
Okay, passing up the brown worksheet. Oh. Yeah. You what? No, no big deal. All right, any more of these? Okay, so these do go on your grade. They were meant to be finished in class last time. So I will, you can have till the end of the day to turn these in online. Okay, but we still are going to talk about this essay. So the apophasis, let me give you the definition first. This is when a speaker brings up a subject by either denying it or denying that it should be brought up. So when a speaker brings up a subject by either denying it or denying that it should be brought up. This is like a perfect strategy for when you're fighting with somebody. You're fighting with somebody about, I don't know, like someone didn't fill up the tank on the gas car. and you're fighting about that, and you're like, why didn't you fill it up? You're being so inconsiderate, right? And then you say something like, I'm not even going to bring up the time that you also didn't clean the kitchen, and then you move on. So it's like this way of saying, like, I'm not going to bring something up, and by doing so, you bring it up, you mention it, right? So this happens on page 629 of Ma's proposal. It's the second to last page, or I guess the third to last. Yeah, does anyone else need a copy? I think that might be 2 copies. Anyone? Okay, so on 629, it says in the last big paragraph, he says, I can think of no one objection that will possibly be raised against this proposal, unless it should be urged that the number of people will be thereby much lessened in the kingdom. This I freely own, and it was indeed one principal design in offering it to the world. I desire the reader will observe that I calculate my remedy for this one individual kingdom of Ireland, and for no other that ever was, is, or I think can never be upon the earth. Now here comes the apophasis. Therefore, let no man talk to me of other expedients. So basically he's saying there, let no man tell me about other proposals that might work to solve this problem. And he says, then he goes on to list a whole bunch of proposals. I'm going to read this part too. Of taxing our absentees at 5 shillings a pound. So these are people who are not living in Ireland at the time. Of using neither clothes nor household furniture except what is of our own growth and manufacture, buying local, basically. Of utterly rejecting the materials and instruments that promote foreign luxury. Don't spend too much on, in this case, French, usually French fancy things. Of curing the expensiveness of pride, vanity, idleness, and gaming in our women. So he's saying, like, don't talk to me about a proposal to like make sure people aren't, gambling or sitting around. Of introducing a vain parsimony, so of introducing thrift, prudence, and temperance. Of learning to love our country, and the want of which we differ even from the Laplanders, the inhabitants of Topenambu, I don't know. But he's saying, like, don't even talk to me about patriotism. Of quitting our animosity and factions, nor acting any longer like the Jews who were murdering one another at the very moment their city was taken. Bit of anti-Semitism for you there. Of being a little cautious not to sell our country and conscience for nothing. Of teaching landlords to have at least 1 degree of mercy toward the tenants. Lastly, of putting a spirit of honesty, industry, and skill into our shopkeepers, who, if a resolution could now be taken to buy only our native goods, would immediately unite to cheat and exact upon us in the price, the measure, and the goodness, nor could ever yet be brought to make one fair proposal of just dealing, though often and earnestly invited to it. Okay, that's a long apophasis. Basically what he's doing there is saying, don't let anyone talk to me about these other proposals. Don't even bring up these other proposals. And all of these proposals he lists are proposals that probably, maybe they will logically work better, but emotionally they're going to work better than the proposal he has to eat babies. Like he's like, don't even talk to me about like increasing patriotism and helping the poor. That's not going to work. Instead, we got to murder and eat babies, right? So what you might not know from this is that all of those bits of proposal right there are all proposals that Jonathan Swift made in the newspapers in the years previously. So these were all solutions that he had to help solve famine in Ireland, and they were completely ignored. This was the one that was actually paid attention to.
I thought he like metaphorically meant eating babies, but he actually was talking about food.
No, the persona in this is, but not him actually. Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't actually want to eat babies, but he's pretending to be a guy who does want to eat babies. We'll talk about it here in a second.
This is the horrible worst.
Yes, exactly.
But then here are these other ways.
Here are these other ways, but don't even
we
bring
don't
those
talk
up
about
for me.
that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so for the example for apophasis, right? Therefore, let no men talk to me of other expedients. Therefore, let no man talk to me of other expedients. That's the example. Okay, then I want you to talk to the person next to you about these three aspects of that example. So the epiphasis is when he's actually bringing up all the different proposals, right? So I want you to talk about why bringing these proposals up in the way that he does would be effective, why he uses this kind of wording, don't talk to me about these things, and then the length of that sentence there. What's effective about those three things? So talk to each other and then write down under effects.
He's like saying like, don't talk about this, and then he gives like a whole list. So many things we can do. But
Like on the set, I just.
don't say there's a better way. There's like, it's like, come on, you're stupid. Yeah. Obviously, we have to eat big bacon.
Yeah. So.
Did you say baby bacon?
I don't want to be like this guy.
I just remember like reading like crispy fried skin.
It's pretty
Okay.
nasty.
Alright, that is exactly
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what it's like. Yeah, don't even talk to me about this, because that's what they do. Like,
Yeah. These issues are tough.
And then he's like, fine, then let's eat bacon. Or we just say, like, yeah. I was like, I can't talk about this. See it. Have you yeah. We're doing
Okay, write down some effects.
I don't know,
Does anyone need another one of these worksheets?
This is my lunch.
I know, I think also like hot chocolate from the 70s.
That was my breakfast. It's a Gulliver on Ethos.
I think also the language that you're showing like. I don't know, it's just like, yeah. You're kind of like, okay, I get the point.
It's painfully obvious.
Field trip.
No.
We should have a field trip. Not today.
No,
just
I'm too
sometime.
lazy for that.
It's fun. We could go to like up the Bingham Creek Library.
All right, I'm gonna give you some context for this. So, I mean, if you read the little blurb, the background, that helps, but this was published in 1729 in a British newspaper. Jonathan Swift, like I said, had written a lot up until that point. He wasn't known so much for satire until after A Modest Proposal, and then he became known for this, and then he also wrote Gulliver's Travels, which is a really famous book as well. So at the time that he wrote this, Ireland had been under British rule for 500 years. Ireland is always the country that's stepped on. Like they have always been like fighting for like complete control of their own country. So at this point, British control of 500 years, and what makes that especially painful for Ireland is that Ireland is a majority Catholic country, and the British aristocracy that controlled Ireland were Protestant. And so there was a small little group of Protestant, mostly English, some Irish, but like a Protestant kind of upper class aristocracy that were controlling the Catholic masses. So every time he refers to papists, like by eating the babies, we're going to get rid of the papists, he's talking about people who follow the Pope. So it's like, oh, this has a double, I mean, it has a lot of different positives to it, but like part of it is that we get to get rid of all these Catholics, you know, and that'll be great. So there's like this huge discrepancy between wealth, and that's divided along the lines of religion. Jonathan Swift, and the other thing that made that English rule really bad at the time was that England had put so many trade restrictions on Ireland that they were not able to participate in any kind of economy, and there was a famine at the time. So there's a famine, there's a lack of trade, and people are starving. And he talks about like stepping over people starving in the streets, and that was true. There were just people like dying in the streets in Ireland, while English people were by comparison thriving. The other thing is that because they're Catholic and historically this is how it works, they had lots of kids, and they weren't always able to provide for all of those kids, so the population was also growing at a rate that they couldn't sustain. Swift was born in Ireland, so technically he was Irish, but then his family was part of that Protestant elite, and so he went over to England and was raised in England. So he's Anglo-Irish, he's got like kind of ties to both countries, and he submitted a whole bunch of proposals to the newspaper, and they were completely ignored. When this was printed, for the most part, people knew it was a joke, a really tasteless joke. Like they were like, you shouldn't be joking about something like this grotesque, it's awful. But they mostly knew it was a joke. Some people didn't realize it was a joke. So there were like published pieces about like, why are you publishing this essay from a psychopath? Like, why are we listening to him? For the most part, people knew though that it was satire. They just didn't appreciate the way they were being represented in that satire. So there was a lot of outrage about this piece. All right, so Jonathan Swift is one guy, but then the persona that he creates is someone totally different. So you kind of can think of a persona as like a first person narrator. Like it's almost like it's fiction because the persona is not the actual person that is publishing this piece, if that makes sense. The persona is not the writer. So tell me a little bit about this persona. What kind of a person is he? What's his personality like? Yeah, Bjorn?
I'd say he has logic. He's
Very
into
logical.
the numbers and stuff.
Yes, he's like into numbers. He's maybe like a statistician or an economist or something. That seems to be what he cares about. Austin?
He seems extremely stubborn.
Yeah, why do you say that?
Because of the, what do you say?
Apophasis or
Apathy?
maybe,
I don't know,
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when he's like, yeah, you can't talk to me about any of these things, otherwise I'll be
Okay, good.
super mad.
Okay,
He
good.
doesn't want to hear anybody else's.
He doesn't seem to want to listen to others. The other thing is that he almost can't imagine that there would be other opinions. There's a couple points there where he's like, I can't imagine anyone would object to this, but even if they do, you know. Alistair?
He sounds kind of like a sociopath.
Okay, so he's a sociopath. What makes him a sociopath though? Like just the cannibalism or?
Yeah.
That's
Just
it.
wants to like raise babies and make them fat and then chop them up and use them for like food and stuff.
Okay, so it's the cruelty and violence that make him a sociopath. And the insensitivity. Okay, good. Lucy? Emotionless. Okay, good. Yeah, Josie.
He seems very like serious and dedicated to using a solution.
Yes. Solutions based. He seems like a dedicated public servant to me. Like it's like he wants to make things better for the world. I don't know that he is necessarily like, give me some baby meat. Like I'm so hungry for baby meat. He's more like this is actually going to do the public good. At least that's what he focuses on. I don't get the sense that he's a sociopath in the way that he's like craving, human flesh. I get the fact that he's a sociopath because of this like emotionless state that he has towards it. But he does seem to have like weirdly good intentions. Audrey?
Yeah, he's just like really matter of fact and like
Yeah.
calm about it. It's like this is gonna work.
Yeah, good. Matter of fact. So when we said stubborn, we also mean like sure of himself. Confident. All right. Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of shameless because he just says like all of these things that like and he like he has a lot of like understatements in this because he just like says something that is so like disturbing and grotesque, and he's just like, it's our solution to like, and he's like, this is normal. Like, why are you acting like it's a big deal? It's not.
Yeah, good. So it's like a shamelessness out of like a lack of awareness about like social norms then. Yeah, Keely.
He's like something social. He's talking about like, oh yeah, my friend. And
He's friendly.
approaches it in a friendly way, even though it's not a friendly thing.
Yeah, definitely. He's not just like some weirdo like locked up in a basement somewhere coming up with this idea. Like he's actually out there in the world, like observing people. Yeah. What else do we know about this guy? Yeah, Lexi.
I said confident, but
Okay, good. Oh, really confident. Yeah, because it's like he lacks that awareness and this creates an overly confident persona. Anything else about him? All right, cool. So I think this basically covers who our guy is. So when we're trying to figure out satire, we want to figure out what the literal argument is. I kind of wrote about this, or I tried to make this clear in the Zootopia worksheet, what the literal argument is and what the kind of surface level argument is. So the argument that the persona is making is that surface level argument. So what is the persona arguing here?
Children.
Eat children. Okay. Wait, and then what was the second part? Eat children. What was it? Boost the economy.
Can I just take a picture of this? So I can see, like, eat more children.
Boost the economy. Yeah, good. Okay.
Boost the economy.
So his argument
Do your part to be a good citizen.
is, yeah, be a good citizen by either selling your children or eating Irish children, right? Okay.
Eat the Irish.
So he's got a lot of reasons. It's actually a very straightforward argumentative essay. It has an intro. It has a thesis statement.
Actually, like, it's not a bad idea.
He has, yeah,
Like,
exactly. He lists his points for why why it's going to be, why it's going to work. He gives details for the proposal.
What if we submit it to the AP grade?
I think it would probably get a really good score.
it'd be like great thesis.
He has a justification for why the proposal will work.
You should.
So do we write like really great essays? And then just
No,
mark it
not,
up?
Wait.
no.
Could we have like an essay where we had to like make up a persona, right? Like officers
We're gonna do
and
it. Yeah, we should have to do. one.
Okay,
I would
let's
kill that.
refocus. Then he has a section for counter arguments. That's the part that we looked at. And then he has a conclusion that we get to is like maybe his real argument. But this is the persona's argument. Eat children, boost the economy. Why is this going to work? Let's get to all of his reasons that this is going to work.
There's so many
Zoe.
I think this is kind of underlying. I don't know if you're looking for a bigger picture, but it was talking about how like the population will be lessened, and I think the Englishmen really wanted like there to be less Irish because they're trying to kick them out of their country. So I think not only is because they're starving, but it's also to like kill more Irish.
Okay, good. So get rid of more Irish people. That can always be a good thing. Josie.
If it's called famine,
Okay. How is it going to do that?
you're gonna eat kids.
Because one, we eat kids to solve hunger. And then two, fewer mouths to feed. Okay, good. What are some other reasons we should eat kids? Audrey.
Once you're done eating them, you can flay the carcass and turn them into gloves and boots.
Ah, yes, accessories.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Custom leather boots.
Gloves and boots.
Gloves. I mean, I want
All right.
Oh, that'd be so
Quiet.
It's like a rabbit split.
Okay, Kaylee.
New product for more sales.
Okay, good. Yes, and who are the ones who own that product? That's really important.
These are
The- The poor, right? And so it's like the poor have more equity. They have, more money to spend now too. Yeah, Alistair.
Then when the rich buy the kids to like prepare them and stuff, then they'll sell them for even more and they'll
Exactly, good. So we've got Rich dealing in a new trade. Awesome. Josie.
He says it will bring great customs to taverns, so you'll have better manners, cooks will like cook it better.
Yeah. Better dishes with better manners. What I really like about that one is that he's basically like, the foodies will be happy because it's a new dish for like people to like explore. Like, how can they cook it and how can they make it delicious? And it kind of raises up the like level of the restaurant. Okay. Bjorn?
He also said that children just taste great. Like,
Yes.
it's like good food, not just like.
He said they're nourished.
Yeah, he says they're way better than pigs, right? They're way better than pork. Yeah, Kaylee.
I don't think that's entirely accurate. The way he puts it is like, it's just an addition to what you're already doing. It's like practical, you're already doing it.
Ah, good. So they're dealing like with new products, but not a new trade. It's like they know how to sell this. So it's gonna be easy too. Is a
So they
big.
talk about like, oh, the landlord's kind of like already owns them.
Yeah, that's true. Might as well eat them anyway, right? I think that's where his real argument shines through. Audrey?
He's saying like they're gonna create new jobs, because we're gonna need slaughterhouses and butchers.
Yep. New jobs, because with the famine, they're almost out of pork, and so this will like help employ all these other people involved in meat processing. Yeah.
He says it will help like marriage.
Yes, I love this.
The husband's gonna like take care of the wife better, you're waiting for like a fat child or something.
Yeah. Because the wife is worth more to the husband. Yes, and so husbands are going to be less likely to abuse their wives, less domestic abuse. Doesn't count, they're meat.
Less
Yeah,
abuse.
Kaylee.
Oh, kind of similar. To less abortion.
I know that part's funny too.
Pro-life, guys. Keep the children.
There will be fewer abortions because babies are actually worth something in this system, and so people won't want to get rid of those babies. And this is the worst thing that could be, you know. And so we get to
It's so ironic.
keep the babies to eat the babies.
But those
Eat
poor
all the next
babies,
generation
but-
though, because then there's nobody to continue.
He has an answer to that. What's his answer to that?
He creates breeding stock.
Yes, keep 4 females for every male, right? And he creates breeding stock. Yeah. Yeah, Brennan.
He can.
To be honest, the way he writes about it, like the passion almost sounds like
It does, and I do actually think he talks about entertainment a little bit. The way that he talks about it is it will become a new status symbol for the rich, because who is eating the babies in this system? The poor aren't eating their own babies. The rich are eating the
The reversal of each other. What the heck?
The rich are eating the poor babies, and it's a way, if you can afford a delicious baby for your dinner, that means that you are, you know, that much
Wait, but why
richer.
would you buy a poor baby?
have to eat
What do
their
they
own
have, like,
So sad.
well. Under this system, people will have fewer kids, and so they'll be able to fatten up their babies better. Yeah.
but it's like,
Ew.
it's just like, and then you go to full thing, and he's just like.
It's a manifesto. Yeah, yeah. Some people felt that, yeah.
Yeah, was he actually okay after this?
Are there any other reasons why it makes sense to eat the babies? One of my favorite parts is it's also this part about how the husbands will care for the wives' baby better. But I also really like how it says that women will actually like their babies. It says it would increase the care and tenderness of mothers towards their children when they were sure of a settlement for life to the poor babes. So it's like the women, mothers will love their children Because their children represent money.
Children equals profit.
Let me just eat my
I
child.
kind of feel sick, not gonna lie. Me too. Like, it's
Yeah.
Less Irish.
He's also talking about how it will give women something to do. Because,
Just be pregnant for 9 months.
so,
Shucks, nothing else to do, might as well.
so it says. Okay, I need everyone to be quiet. Okay, so it says, thus the squire will learn to be a good landlord and grow popular among the tenants. The mother will have 8 shillings net profit and be fit for work till she produces another child. So in a way, what I like about it's kind of, I don't know that he intended this, but what I like about it is that the women are valued in this system for their labor because they're like laboring when they aren't pregnant, but also for their labor because when they labor for babies, they have money that way. So women become actually useful to the society too, which was not the case at the beginning of this. So looking at this list of things,
This is different.
okay, let's just pretend it's just logic. This guy is all about logic. Logically, does this plan work?
Absolutely.
It does. It would work, right? Like I think it's a really good plan logically. You give poor people access to resources that they didn't otherwise have access to, that no one can take away from them. I'm sure we'd find some way, but at this point, people can't take away from them, and so they get to actually, produce in a capitalist society, and we all get to have a good time because babies taste great. So yeah, logically it would work, but let's go back to our rhetorical triangle. Yeah.
But it's more like scientific.
Okay.
Isn't there like actually a chemical in our skin or something that when we eat our own flesh, it like makes us crazy, or is that a myth?
It's kind of a myth. So there are some diseases that can be passed through human flesh, and that's where that myth comes from. So it's kind of like how mad cow, if a cow eats another cow that has mad cow disease, they will become crazy. Human beings have a few diseases like that, that if you ate human meat, you could become crazy, but it's not in everyone's.
I think that's just the act of
So we use
So yeah,
Like, you know, the dogs past where they weren't actually crazy, they just had to eat each other.
yeah, they were fine after. They like opened stores and they were fine.
The Donner Party.
No, they were starving, and so they ate the meat. And then once they were discovered, they were fine.
But they could have gone crazy because of disease, right?
Yeah, but like the chance of that person having a disease. There's a rumor that I think is so interesting that we all, like, not all of us, but a lot of us like believe it because it's so prominent in myths, is that if you have one taste of human flesh, like you're gonna crave it forever and not be able to stop eating it. Totally a myth. Yeah.
Are you sure? How do people know that? Who tested that?
I guess
They're big cannibals. They're big cannibals.
You know how?
All right, back to this. So we look here at our triangle. He clearly has logos. We decided it's very logical, right? How does he establish his ethos?
Oh wait, I remember. I have to remember, but basically, like, I think he kind of like. He says he's like consulted with other people.
Good. Okay. So
Like I this is peer review.
yeah, right. He says I've consulted with lots of sources. He doesn't necessarily say experts, but he implies that they have a lot of knowledge about this. Josie?
He also uses like a ton of math and numbers. Kind of to go with logos, but also it's very like he's done his research.
We feel like math and numbers are more credible often than just emotions, right? A lot of times if somebody has the statistics for something, we're like, oh yeah, must be true. But we don't necessarily realize that there's a lot of like emotional ways of manipulating statistics. So yeah, the fact that he just has all of this math going on, although someone a couple years ago, a real math nerd, did some figuring here, and not all of his math is correct, which I think is part of the satire, but yeah. Yeah, Kaylee.
Two things. The first, he gives all his reasons why he worked before he gives the solution. So you're kind of like set up like, oh yeah, all these good things are happening. The second is, I think that he purposely undermines his own ethos through his sources because he keeps saying, oh, an American or oh, a Frenchman, and those aren't people that his audience would really like very much. And he also like makes it seem like they're just kind of random people. Like,
American,
he
I know.
says that they're knowledgeable, but like he says it in a way where it's like, I'm just saying they're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, my friend who likes hunting's down for this.
Right, exactly. So it's like he's trying to establish this through the use of sources, but his sources are pretty transparently bad. Yeah, Gracie.
He like establishes credibility by like listing like all the different like sides of the problem. He doesn't address like just one part of the like the hunger. He doesn't just address that. He also addresses like the increasing population and they can't withstand it. So it's just like even like things that aren't necessarily needed, like new accessories.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like he's covering like all the different aspects of the problem, and that makes him seem more credible. It makes him seem like he has really thought this through, and he really has come up with this like surefire plan, right? So then the one thing that is obviously missing is the pathos part,
I
right?
could argue that it's not.
Okay, tell me.
So in our ethics, we like jobs, right? Because jobs create opportunities for people. We like money because we don't want people to be in the situation that they're in. So in a sense, there is pathos because if you think about it, better marriages, based on our ethics, better marriages are what we value because we value like companionship.
Okay.
In a sense,
Yeah.
abortion could be too because we value not killing babies. So by killing babies, we're not killing babies when we don't value it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's maybe the problem is like he's attempting to address pathos in a way that leaves like a really big hole in what he should be recognizing about people's value system. Kaylee.
I said that he uses the most pathos because
Interesting.
his real point uses a lot of pathos to emphasize.
Yes.
Well, his like surface point, he doesn't use on pathos, and that is a purposeful appeal to the pathos in the opposite direction, which
Yes.
he really wants to do.
Yes, he is trying to disgust you. Hopefully you're disgusted. He's trying to make you like sick to your stomach. He's trying to get you to think like this is a horrible, horrifying person. This is a monster, right? And in doing so, he does appeal to a certain kind of pathos, but it's like the opposite. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So he thinks, we're talking about the persona. The persona thinks that he's made a great argument. I think. I mean, you guys pointed out how he seems overly confident. He's like, no, for sure. You're not. I mean, he says, if anyone can come up with a solution for this, they should erect a statue in his name. Like he is fully expecting that people will implement his solution, and there will be a statue of this guy in, the Irish town square, where everybody could say, thank you so much for like proposing we eat the babies. He's so confident. So he thinks that he is appealing to an audience in a way that's going to be effective. Who do you think he's appealing to then? Like, who is this audience that's going to be affected by this? Who's going to say, yeah, this is a good plan?
Psychopaths.
Okay, good. So fellow sociopaths, psychopaths, good. They're cruel, right? They're violent. They're insensitive. He believes that they're going to be emotionless, but he also believes that they want to do good, right? So he's appealing to an audience that's very much like himself, I think. Yeah.
Appealing to like the rich people who already don't really care about the poor because they're like, hey, we can make it use for them.
Okay, good. He seems to assume that his audience is going to be participating in the eating of the babies, not the selling of babies. He seems to assume that his audience is not part of these breeders that he keeps talking about, right? He assumes that his audience is going to be super happy about getting rid of the Irish, getting rid of papists. Like he assumes that his audience is like part of this rich aristocracy that is going to appreciate this plan, right? So then if we take a step back, so this is the persona's argument. We take a step back and we say, okay, well then what is the real argument here? Jonathan Swift is not the persona. Jonathan Swift is using the persona to say something about this whole situation. actually, I'm gonna have you guys, oh, you already did this on the worksheet. So tell me, what did you think his real argument was then?
For me, it felt kind of like a giant joke where it was like, because in the governments, they completely, obviously, during the famine, it was just complete like crapshoot. Like they just had no clue. And it felt like another completely insensitive, bad plan where it's like, wait, you guys don't want to eat your babies? You guys are insane. This is a great plan. It's going to lead us to prosperity. It feels like he's just mocking everyone else's plan by coming up with an even worse one. And I feel like, this is good, guys. Let's just keep getting more and more insensitive. It's like he's appealing to the worst of humanity. Like, and this is the future.
Okay, good. So it's like he thinks that he's, you said he's appealing to like this idea, or he's making up this idea that the government's plans have been bad, but then you said it's also about the worst of humanity. So I'm going to kind of combine those and say he's kind of saying that the government and the plans that they've represented or that they've put forward so far are the worst of humanity too. You know, we'll get back to that here in a second. Kaylee?
I'm just kind of like saying that the rich people who are dehumanizing the Irish are going too far. Like he's kind of showing by going to the this like how dehumanized the Irish already are to like the point where these people coming in from England are just like treating like they're a problem instead of a person.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like this idea that the rich people, by obviously not caring at all about the starvation in Ireland, is kind of like they are seeing the Irish as unhuman. Yeah, yeah.
Katie kind of stole my opinion about it. Yeah, basically just kind of like, I guess, yeah, like she was saying, basically like he's kind of, his persona is kind of like, well, the Irish are already just like not really treated like humans, so might as well just like buy and sell them. Just like they are like, it's just kind of like it's kind of the hyperbole kind of thing, like, or exaggeration, just to like say, to give this satirical argument is just to show that like, oh wait, hold on, like, the poor are already kind of being treated almost like a bit kind of like that. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. It's like people are not valued for their humanity here. They are valued for their productiveness. You know, they're valued for what they can like bring to the table in capitalism, like what they could labor and what they could like the products that they could provide. You know, and so might as well just eat them. If that's how you see people, then what's the difference between a person and a product? Yeah, Josie.
He also has a question, right? Especially with that.
Yep.
I can't say the word of the day.
Yes.
Thing.
Apple faces.
Especially with that, right? He's saying, like with the link, too, right? We were talking about the link. Because it's so long, he says these are so many better solutions in a way compared to these obviously these babies.
Yeah.
So there are solutions out there, and we need to take one because also all of these other reasons, right? Like for the solution. So I'm providing these all.
Yeah, good. So it's like pointing out the fact that like I have already spent so much time on this issue and you never paid attention to me before. So the fact that you are only paying attention to this one that horrifies and disgusts you says something about you. Yeah, Claire.
Oh, mine is kind of I think it's kind of like a wake-up call, like they don't like give this solution and they're gonna have to resort to like things that are just severe or like obviously not this, but it's not gonna change and if they don't like take it seriously, then like this could potentially happen.
Okay, good. So that it can get worse, that people can be devalued to this point. Okay, let's look at all of these and see if we can kind of put them together as an argument. We got to pay attention to the solutions. If you don't act now, it will get worse. If people are products, then we might as well just eat them. The government is insensitive and full of bad ideas. So they represent kind of the worst of humanity. And so it's like mocking the British government. The rich will dehumanize the Irish because they clearly don't care about the starvation issues. So what I want you to do now is try to, maybe not all of that, but try to combine this argument into something that you think fully covers his actual argument. And just write that on your modest proposal sheets. Try and do this on your own for this one. So you're writing down what you think an argument could be that could combine these ideas into one solid argument that he has. Yeah. Okay. I'm hoping when you guys read this last time, you recognized it as satire. Did anybody read this and they were just like, what did she have us read? Like, this is real? This is something. I mean, potentially you could if you didn't know the context of it, but there are points in this where the satire comes through pretty clearly, where it becomes obvious that he doesn't mean this really. And like I said, at the time, people did recognize that this was satire, even though it is like, does seem so logical and so sort of matter of fact. Let's look at one of those points. So this is on 625. I already had you look at this on the worksheet, but let's look again. And it says, I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young, healthy child, well nursed, is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled. And I make no doubt that it will equally serve in a fricassee or a ragout. All right, how do we know that that's satire? That's like his thesis statement. How do we know that he doesn't really mean that? Alistair? Yeah, right. Okay, so for us Americans especially, we know that like we're not all cannibals here, right? But even at the time, it's like in not even at the time, but even in Britain, where at the time they wouldn't be super fond of Americans, they know that Americans might be a little bit backwards from them. The British in 1729 would have been a little bit more cultured, and they would have thought of the Americans as a little bit more adventurous, a bit more rough and tumble, right? They still know, they have friends and family in America, like they know that Americans aren't cannibals. So for him to say that part of it, it's clearly a joke about Americans, you know, a joke that people would recognize. Haley.
I think it's really interesting because it will equally serve. That whole phrase is really good for a few reasons. The first is your first is how I say it. So like he's really emphasizing the utilization of one product, but also will equally serve because he's talking about how all that they want to do is like serve them instead of thinking of like human beings, their only purpose is to serve, whether they're, and he's kind of implying that whether they're serving as like basically serfs to these rich people or they're being eaten, it's the same thing.
Oh, interesting. I really like that. So you're looking at just that one word serve and how it kind of works as a pun, right? It's got the two different meanings. Serve as in like serve yourself, here's the baby, or serve as in like actually performing service. Jane?
I really like the very last part where we serve in a fricassee or a ragout, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like he's like, you may be disgusting,
Right.
Like where he kind of realizes an issue, but not the right one.
Yes. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Like he realizes an issue, but not the right one.
Like the author Swift is basically saying that the rich people are worried that it's not a good, that it's not tasty.
Yeah. Right.
That that's what they're worried about.
Right. He does this throughout. He imagines a counter argument that I hope is not actually there. But his counter argument that he imagines that the rich people will be worried about it tasting good kind of suggests what he thinks of the rich people, and how selfish they are. Yeah, fricassee or rag out. Aaliyah brought up the Donner Party. The Donner Party were not like creating recipes about the people they were eating, right? It was out of necessity. This idea that like, oh, they're going to taste good this way or cooked this way or this way, it becomes so frivolous. Sabina?
Okay, so you kind of just mentioned it. I think you can really help with that part. It's not just like, oh, like, they're so good, and like, oh, you can bake them, you can boil them, you can roast them, you can eat them with salt and pepper.
Yeah, right.
Create all these dishes, and so that's like, oh, like, he's really putting so much into it.
Right. And then he doesn't mean it to be like an actual solution when he is when he's treating it like a cookbook a little bit, right? Like it becomes less than it becomes a different thing than just a proposal. Aaliyah?
Well, I think the whole problem is that there aren't unhealthy children. So when he says there's the unhealthy child, and then also that, but he talks about a nourishing and wholesome kind of meal.
Mm-hmm.
When I think that's when he's kind of like, in a way, telling your brain like, look at these children who don't have nourishing and wholesome food, and let's make them into it.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of showing the contrast between what they have and what he's trying to impose.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting here that like he talks about the poor people like starving in the street, and then he kind of contradicts himself a little bit by saying the babies can be healthy and nourishing and wholesome, but people reading this are not willing to give nourishment to the poor babies. Yeah, Austin.
This isn't necessarily about the satire, but it's just something that I was picking up on while I was reading it. Throughout the whole essay is referring to the babies as it instead of like them or he or she, and I feel like that kind of like in a way like helps the argument.
Yeah.
Dehumanizing the context of the child.
Yeah, what if we called all the meat that we ate by pronouns? Like, here's your chicken, I hope you enjoy her. Oh my gosh, that's horrible, And so this way of dehumanizing to make it okay is awful. The other thing, and this goes along with what Aaliyah was saying, the wholesome in there, I think is meant to be taken ironically as well. Like this is the opposite of the wholesome proposal when we think of wholesomeness in terms of morality, Okay, so I think it's pretty clear in just that little sentence, in that little proposal right there, that he is being satirical, that we're not meant to take it seriously. There are lots of moments like that in this essay where his real argument kind of shines through, and we see that he's definitely using things like exaggeration, hyperbole, understatement, parody, incongruous juxtaposition. These are all those words that we did in the Nearpod the first day we talked about satire. So what you're going to do with the partner that you've been working with or the group or whatever, you are going to find 3 instances other than the one we just talked about, 3 instances in this essay when the satire shines through, when you realize that it's not meant to be taken seriously, and you're going to write to decide how you know that it's not meant to be taken seriously. Okay, 3 of those. Then we'll move on.
Oh yeah. I like that. Yeah, I was actually thinking about
lost her name. A very good one. I'm sure it's one of them. She's like 5 years. Last week, and you said about 9 months out of the plan, any other that child, I was like, and so look at the high, and it's really like, I mean, I so, I was at, it says feel or expressing discontent. I was like, I did it. So really, like, I didn't know yeah, like he's like in like a good fat child. He was like also use the word
Imagine saying I'm going thrifting.
no money. Like you have no money, but like you know, oh yeah, definitely. The OGs. The OGs.
It's 7th grade. Me and Audrey wrote a play.
Uh-huh.
It was like a spin-off of like the elves and the shoemaker.
Uh-huh.
We had to use this set and make it really dark. So we made elves in shoes. And then he faced the elves.
This is similar. Geniuses. If only you had done it first.
Yeah, it's in my new book. It's very tight.
Yes. Okay. Oh, goodness.
So, I'll do the essay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Gracie, I couldn't see.
You know what? How about?
What? I couldn't see. Yeah.
And then I'm not positive yet what we'll do Friday. I think I'm gonna do kind of a walkthrough with the timed rhetorical analysis. So I will record it for you. Okay. Uh-huh. Oh, it does too? Maybe we won't do that then. We'll see. For this Friday. So you just watch it and then you kind of do stuff along with us and then you take pictures of what you did and you send it in.
Oh, I was like, look here.
Oh.
This is like not related to any of this.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about it. I recently reread one of my favorite books. It's called The Lanchers by Brandon Sanderson.
Uh-huh.
And I love it so much because in the book, it's like a whole bunch of politics kind of pretty much. And there's these two priests pretty much who are trying to convert an entire nation. But it's really cool because one of them is like entirely logic based and so it focuses solely on like numbers and how we get those numbers. And then one of them is just like so passionate and focused on like making this stuff. It's true,
Oh.
except actually they're not. One of them wants to save all the people, and the other one wants to prove the murder.
So who ends up converting? Maybe you don't want to tell me because
I
that's
don't
sort
want
of.
to spoil.
Is it part of the series or is it standalone?
Currently it's standalone, but yes, said that's possible.
Is it fantasy?
Yeah.
I really like fantasy and sci-fi that's about religion. I don't know what it is, but I really like it.
There's like 3 main storylines. So like it's about this prince who gets like basically cursed. So these people who get cursed and they get thrown into like the city of sludge and grime and stuff. And Yeah, they used to be gods when they fell.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and the thing is, if you get hurt, they never heal. So you always have to loss of hands. So
Oh,
everyone's like keep giving up, they can't die.
so it's kind of a hell.
Yeah, they get giant gashes in like their sides and they're still alive, just dying.
Ooh,
But
this one's awesome.
it is. But so this prince gets throws in and he like everyone's given up. They're like done. But he believes that they can. He believes that they can create like actual working society. So that's his goal. He like starts creating like a society inside the study of the dirt and crime.
Interesting. I'm gonna put this on my Goodreads.
Sorry, just going off.
No, I'm putting it on my Goodreads. I said I'm happy.
And then the other part is about this girl. Like, it's an arranged marriage.
So she made her marry him.
Uh-huh.
They didn't tell her that he got hurt. They told her he died.
Oh,
By dying,
interesting.
it implies his marriage contract. So then
Because of
she's married to him.
politics. So she's married to a dead guy, and she's like trying to navigate the court and all of that. And she's trying to do humanitarian work for the people that are stuck in this city, and it's undermining all of his efforts to make them self-sufficient.
Uh-huh.
And her whole thing is like going against the priests because it's like a military religion. So like if they convert the city, like have everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna read this. Don't tell me anymore. I want to read this now. That sounds great.
So good.
It's my favorite thing.
Okay, who found 3 moments for the satire shines through? Raise your hand if you found it. Okay, awesome. So what I am hoping that you found in those sections and what I had to write in the margins were these different satirical strategies that he's using. So if you haven't, well, let me ask you this. How many of you named what he's doing in the margins using your word of the day words about satire? Okay, that's what I want you to do now, if you haven't. So you guys did. But for all the rest of you, find those 3 moments again. Name to the side which strategy that works with. Is it incongruity? Is it parody? Is it understatement? And so on. So use your words of the day to label them. Oh yeah, verbal irony, situational irony. Jeez. Yeah. Lent is like a right before.
It's gonna be a lot more children dying in South Africa.
So I think that what he's talking about is like Mardi Gras, so it's like the celebration right before Lent, and then Lent you decide to swear off something. So Mardi Gras is like a week before Mardi, just like, yeah, sin as much as possible. Sin. And then once that happens, yeah, and so then once Lent happens, you're like, I'm not doing any of that for a month. Yeah, and then you do it all again next year. I mean, it's been perverted. It wasn't like that in the medieval times. Yeah, but they had big festivals.
But they showed some wrist action.
I know.
Were their calves exposed?
Okay, the reason I wanted you to do that is because here's our next activity. We are going to make our own modest proposals.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
So what I want us to do for a second here, did I write this part down? Yes, there we go. Let's just list a couple problems that you think we have here at Harriman High School. We don't need to go through all of them. I just want to give some people some ideas.
I say we do the same thing here. Just
All right, so what are some problems we have here at Harriman High School?
over.
Yeah,
Lunch is
Kelly.
too short.
Okay. Short lunch. What else? What did you say?
I don't think we have enough basketball. There's not moving sidewalks in the halls.
Okay, so halls, it's maybe too big.
No, but
Okay, real
We only
problems.
have 5 minutes in between classes.
Wi-Fi blocks everything.
To get across the school.
Yeah, especially like if you're in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And to go to the other side of the school.
Okay, what are some other problems you have, Josie?
Oh, yeah. You just hide people just, I don't know, stuff like that.
Lots of druggies here, all right.
Yeah.
What else is a problem here at Herman High School?
Can I use the bathroom?
What is happening? Did everyone set the alarm exactly? No, you can't go to the bathroom. When did you orchestrate this?
On Monday, we were all like, let's drink.
Like, what is happening? No one can go to the bathroom ever again.
Wait, I got something.
Yeah.
Teachers won't let their students go to the bathroom.
All right, it's up there. Brennan. Okay, you get the idea. There's lots of them. You could keep going. You could think about the problems that we have like in the community, like by that I mean like with the students. You could think about the problems that are like top down, like the district has imposed on us, physical problems, like not enough parking spaces or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to go with this. But what you're gonna do in your group, you're going to decide one problem that you want to solve. Solve the problem. And by that I mean the actual solution. So this is the solution that Jonathan Swift was actually saying, that like if people didn't dehumanize as much, if they actually cared about poor people, then maybe they could get something done, you know? So come up with the actual solution to the problem. And then you are going to use satire to get your audience to arrive at that actual solution without preaching to them. So you can't tell them this is the actual solution. You need to get them to get there on their own, because that's what the satirist believes is his like. That's what the satirist believes is the best way to get people to do things, not to just preach to them, but to get them to kind of like laugh at themselves or cringe at themselves and kind of come to the right solution on their own. And to do this, you are going to use at least 2 of the strategies you just identified. So you identified in Swift's work. Okay, so you could use more than that, but I want you to be aware of when you are using at least 2 of those. And we won't have time today, I don't think, but at the beginning of next class, you will present your proposals to the class and we'll talk about them.
I won't be there either.
What? Oh, no, on Tuesday. Yeah. It could be one of these, it could be something else you come up with on your own. All right, so if you're working at home, you gotta do this on your own. We've got 20 minutes left of class, so spend about 20 minutes writing up what you would do.